Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Now, I did promise that in this episode we were not going to sing Auld Lang Syne, so do not worry. If you are listening to this early in the morning, there is no singing on this episode, but it is New Year's Eve. And so, on the final day of 2018, I'm here to say it's going to be an epic 2019. 2018 was just practice and all the other cliches out there, because today we are talking about your New Year's business resolutions. Now, I'm not actually a fan of New Year's resolutions entirety, right? Last year I actually had no New Year's resolutions, and it was the most relaxing year I think I've ever had. I kind of feel like New Year's resolutions they're sent to help us fail at things. You know, I don't know anyone who's actually, and I've asked over 20 of my friends this in the recent, last 6 weeks, how many people have ever completed their New Year's resolutions, and all of my friends said no. So either me and all of my friends are real underachievers, or New Year's resolutions are really, really difficult to actually stay motivated for. And I think that the reason behind that is that we tend to set goals. We tend to set unrealistic goals. We tend to set goals that we feel like we'd really like to achieve, but perhaps we're not actually dialed into what we want. And perhaps we, haven't necessarily assessed what we actually need, what we actually want. And that's why we struggle to maintain them and stay motivated for them throughout the year. So we are going to set New Year's business resolutions today, but we're going to set them for the next 90 days, right? Because I figure there is no point in me saying to you, hey, let's be hypocritical. Let's set these resolutions, and in 6 months or a year's time, realize that actually we're no further to doing them than we were on the 31st of December. So we're going to set some new 90-day habits, and if then it feels right for you, in 90 days time, you can revisit them. And if they're still working for you, you do them for another 90 days and another 90 days and another 90 days. And then that way, when we look back on the 31st of December 2019, hopefully you will have found some sales and business habits that you actually enjoy and that have become staples in your sales process to really help you skyrocket your business success. So hopefully you are here, you're chomping at the bit, you are ready to put down the leftover turkey. I know, we've all had it. It's turkey omelette, turkey and ham pie, turkey sandwiches. I'm done. I cannot look at turkey for the rest of the year, which is only one day. But let's dig in and let's start setting those New Year's business resolutions and thinking about what should really be on the list. So, number one is selling every day. And I know if you've been an avid poddy in 2018, you'll be thinking, yeah, Jess, I've heard this one. But seriously, please set up this habit in the first quarter of 2019. And there are a few reasons for this. It's not just because I really like it when people approach me and go, hey, you're the girl who talks about selling every day. It's actually because it really will help you to gain more sales, help you to attract more clients. And it's going to be the simplest and easiest thing to change. Okay. Now, I say the simplest and easiest thing because selling every day is something you can add into every single part of your sales process. So whether that's adding a call to action on your blog, on your podcast, on your YouTube channel, your vlog, whatever that looks like, whether it's developing a new welcome sequence that sells, upselling on your thank you pages, offering tripwire offers to your audience when they've participated in free content, or even going out there and doing some proactive outreach and talking to people about new offers. Selling every day is the easiest action to implement in terms of the stuff you actually do, but can be the most challenging when it comes to mindset. Now, for Christmas, I received a book called Eat That Frog, and it's a book that I actually already own. I've got 2 copies of it, which I'm now counting myself incredibly lucky. But basically, Eat That Frog is about understanding when to tackle a task. And generally, people who like to eat the frog prioritize the task that scares them the most so they can get it out of the way And once that's done, they can go on to doing something infinitely more fun, interesting, creative, whatever floats their particular boat. So in the interests of New Year's business 90-day resolutions, I'm going to encourage you to eat the frog when it comes to sales. And I'm going to encourage you to start selling every day and making it your first task of the day, because that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. And the reason that it's going to make it easier is because once you start getting into the rhythm of selling every day and selling right at the beginning of every day, you've automatically ticked off your revenue generating task, which means that for the rest of the day, you get to focus on things that you find are more within your comfort zone, things that you find easier, things that you find simpler, and things that you find more enjoyable to do. So if you are with me, you're going to have to, at the end of the episode, hit me up and send me an email and be like, yes, I'm on the selling everyday train. Because in 2019, I can promise you that I'm going to be continuing with my trend for selling every day. And I'm going to be doing this in a bunch of new and different and exciting ways. I spent a lot of November rewriting my email welcome sequence. If you haven't re-opted into my newsletter list, or if you haven't signed up to the newsletter list in a little while, make sure you head on over there, drop your deets in, and you can see exactly how my welcome sequence looks, and you can see what kinds of things that you might want to be putting into yours. But I'm also going to be adding in different calls to action in different places amongst different pieces of content. And of course, I will be sharing how they perform with you guys on the podcast as well as we start to see results. So that's number one, selling every day. If you can do that, sell every day for 90 days, I guarantee that you are going to see way, way more selling success in 2019, and you'll actually start to enjoy it. It becomes a habit. It becomes something that then is easy and that you can do more of. Now, number two is about managing your metrics. Ooh, I know, numbers, yawn. But seriously, and we've talked about this many, many times over the last year, but if you don't know your numbers, you don't know how far you are away from your goals, and you don't know how much you need to make or what you need to do in order to start hitting them. And knowing your numbers is not just about understanding your revenue goal. It's not just about setting an arbitrary number and kind of thinking, oh, well, this is the year that I want to make $100,000 or $100 million or whatever your magic number happens to be. It's about knowing how you can generate sustainable and predictable income in your business. So for example, if you are using organic traffic right now to populate your high ticket programs, one of the metrics that you might want to be tracking is discovery calls. How many discovery calls does it take you to make a sale? Okay, so if you are average Joe, I always feel sorry, by the way, for Joe, because Joe, it must be feeling pretty sore about being called average Joe forever. But anyway, I digress. So if you are the average person, you will close 1 in 4 sales calls. Okay, so you'll close a quarter of your calls. Now, that sounds like a lot, but actually, if every deal you have is worth 5K, let's make it nice, easy, round numbers on New Year's Eve, because let's face it, wine is going to be involved. Then that means you would lose out on $15,000. Okay. If your average close rate is 1 call in 4, you would be losing out on $15,000 for every 4 calls that you make. Once you start putting it into that perspective, you realize just how important those conversions and tracking those conversions can be. Because again, if every deal is worth $5,000 and you can raise your close rate to 50%, you're making $10,000 for every 4 calls. And you're only, I say only, but you're only losing 10. And again, if you can increase that to 75 and so on, you're going to be retaining a lot more of your revenue. Okay, so if you're looking at using discovery calls to fill your programs or packages in 2019, then make sure that you are tracking those call conversion numbers. They are super, super important. Equally, if you're somebody who is generating more than 5K a month and you are starting to use Facebook ads traffic, now is the time to start tracking your metrics seriously. And not just in terms of cost per click, like how much is it costing you to get somebody to click through, but how much is it actually costing you to get somebody to give you their email address in return for a free opt-in? Or even better, how much is it costing you to make a sale? So if you know that for every $1 you put into Facebook ads, you're getting $10, $15, or $500 back, you know that you can confidently predict and repeat that cycle. Okay, so it's really, really important to start thinking about the metrics that are going on every day in your business and start keeping track of them and looking at how you can use them to hit your goals. Now, some of the metrics that I tend to focus on are not just around revenue, they're not just around how to predict my income, but they're around other goals that I might have in the business. So for example, every year I will give myself a revenue target. How much do I want the business to make that particular year? And I'll break it down into a yearly target, a quarterly target, and a monthly target. So I know every single month what I need to be generating to stay on track to hit that yearly goal. The other metrics that I track are community growth. So how much traffic am I getting? How much paid traffic am I generating? And what's that converting to? How much organic traffic am I actually getting? How am I growing my email list? How many people are being added to my list each week, each month, each quarter, and each year? How many people are being added to my Facebook community? How many people are starting to listen to the podcast? So start looking at how your community is growing, whether that's blog subscribers, YouTube channel subscribers, people joining your email list, people listening to your podcast, people joining the Facebook community, people joining Twitter chats, or whatever your platform of choice is. If you are tracking it, it means that you can start to understand how much revenue you're actually generating from these particular places and also how good your conversions are. And again, once you know the data, you're able to play with it so that you can start generating that predictable and repeatable income, regardless of whether you're using paid traffic or not. All right. And then finally, the metrics that I manage are around personal growth. So around how much family time am I taking this year? How much holiday am I taking? How much time am I going to take out for self-development and personal development? So things like fitness, things like personal growth, taking time out for mental health, and just making sure that I am, developing as well as I can into a well-rounded human being, and lifestyle goals. So, think about what it is that you actually want to achieve this year personally and professionally. One of my mentors used to say to me that money goes where it has a purpose. And so a lot of people find that they'll start setting these arbitrary goals, specifically around revenue in the new year. People will often say, I want to make £250,000 this year, but they don't know what they would spend it on. So if you are trying to hit a large revenue goal this year, or you're trying to hit a new revenue goal, what I'd encourage you to do is actually sit down and think about, where is that money going? Are you putting a deposit down for a mortgage? Are you looking to buy a new car? Are you thinking about taking your kids to Disneyland? Have you got a special holiday planned? Have you got a wedding to pay for? What is it that you actually want to spend that money on? And give yourself goals for each of those areas and, financial targets. So for example, if one of your goals is to buy, I don't know, a MacBook Pro, you might section out and go, right, okay, I know I'm going to need to put aside £1,500 for a MacBook Pro this year. And if you start listing out what you actually want that money for, sometimes we can be surprised. Sometimes we actually want more money than we kind of put forward in our goals. And sometimes we need a lot less, but it doesn't stop us wanting more. So start thinking about the value that money has to you or will have to you in 2019 and what you're actually going to do with it. And you'll find that when it has that purpose, when you have that purpose, that money, you're much more focused on actually hitting that goal rather than it being an arbitrary number that you think, oh yeah, well, when I get there, I'll be proud of myself. The final thing on managing your metrics is actually to look at what your metrics were this year. Now, I've done this with clients before and said, how much money do you make every month? And they've gone, oh, I don't know, like 2-3K. And when we've actually looked at it, instead, they've been making 5K, 7K, in some cases even 10. But their expenses have been high and they haven't been spending on things that actually have been adding value or encouraging an ROI. So before you go out there and set new money goals and start thinking about how much you want to be making and what you want to be doing this year, really start looking at what you made last year. What was your consistent monthly income? What was your consistent monthly expenditure? And what was that actually spent on? Was it spent on stuff that was generating an ROI for you? Or was it spent on stuff that actually wasn't giving you anything in terms of return, and do those things need to be in your bank account or your direct debits any longer? And then finally, number 3, New Year's business resolutions for 90 days in 2019, planning. Now, I know we've talked about scheduling a lot this year, and some people are still like, do you know what, I just cannot get on board with the schedule. I'm too creative. We've had every reason under the sun why planning should not be a part of our time. The thing is, as my dad used to say, and this show is now going to have an expletive, so if you do have kids, please cover ears. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. It's the 6 Ps. Now, the thing is, if you don't know what you're going to be selling, or when you're going to be selling it, or who you're going to be selling it to, you are always on the back foot. And it fails like every single year. I'm still amazed by the amount of people who wing it every year. And they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to be selling next week. And then they get into this panic like, oh my God, I'm not making money. Oh crap, I need to sell something. What shall I sell? And in that moment of panic, 9 times out of 10, they look around and they go, what are other people selling that's popular? And they pick one of those ideas. That doesn't make these people bad people, right? It doesn't even make them copycats, unless you were going out there and rewriting somebody else's website and copying all that kind of jazz word for word. Then you have copycatitis and you need to go to the doctor and get a prescription for that. But it's about poor planning. And I know that scheduling isn't the sexiest thing and we don't always credit it with making the money. But the reality is that if you start planning your quarters and you start planning your year, you know what you're going to sell and when you're going to sell it, you're going to find it a heck of a lot easier. You're going to find it a heck of a lot easier in terms of creating content, because all of your content is going to be able to be congruent. You're going to find it a lot easier in order to be able to prepare your audience for launches. So you'll be able to grow your audience at the right time, nurture them at the right time, and sell to them at the right time. And you're going to stop this feast or famine kind of arc that happens in the majority of businesses, okay? And that means, 1 month having a 10K month, the next month having 0, and then having a 2K month, and then 0, and then a 5K, and then 1K, and that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for profitability, but also it's not sustainable for your stress levels. So really, really, if you can start thinking even just about the first quarter of 2019, what are you going to be selling? When are you going to be selling it? What month? What week? What content do you need to create for that? When are you going to create that content? When are you going to be able to sit down and take the time to create the content? And who is it for? And do you already have people like that in your audience, or is that something you need to build? If it's an audience that you need to build, maybe you need to take some time, start with the growth phase of that. But whatever it is, 2019 really does need to be the year of planning, of preparation, and of consistent execution. Because the one thing that we are seeing in this online space is that it is starting to get not saturated, but it's full of people who are taking chances. And some of them are more likely to end positively than others. And the ones that are more likely to end positively are those people who have taken calculated risks, who've planned, and who've executed well. The people who are most likely to find that actually they're taking risks and that they're not paying off are those who didn't plan but who jumped on some kind of bandwagon. Is now the time to cough and be like, Bitcoin. That sounds really bitter, doesn't it? I'm looking at myself in the mirror thinking, oh God. But it's that kind of thing, right? Don't jump on a bandwagon in 2019, at least not for the first quarter. Really plan what you want to happen, how you want to be successful, and what you want to make in terms of profit, and you're going to find it much, much easier. That's been my mini episode for today for the final day of 2018. And if you have joined me out on your dog walk, in the car, heading to the shop for some last minute celebrations, then I appreciate it. And I know that we have an epic year to come together, and I'm very, very excited to be spending 2019 with you guys on the podcast, sharing all the amazing sales tips, tricks, strategies, and techniques that you could ever want to build your business. So from me to you and a large glass of vino, have a wonderful end to 2018, and I'm super excited about seeing you in the new year. Happy New Year!